guys? It's your boy Luke here for our round 2 prize picks targets for the Valero Texas Open. And round 1 wasn't our best, right? We went 2-2-1, 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, which unfortunately on prize picks means no dice, no win for us, but we were all too close. With Bryson, we were off by just the hook, ended up getting to the 4 birdies mark, but couldn't crack the 5 for us. Gary Willen was the push at 4 birdies or better, had plenty of opportunities on the back 9, but couldn't cash in. And the 2 losses ended up being a little bit of weird ones for us. We ended up having the under on Bryson, like I said, but also on Ches Reavie at fairways, where he ended up hitting 12 of 14 fairways today, shooting 5 over par and withdrawing. So obviously wasn't feeling 100%. That's why he withdrew, yet he still hit 12 of 14 fairways. So a little bit of a wacky bad beat for us, but nonetheless, a lot of our props were spot on, or at the very least, extremely close to hitting. So the process is right, and just waiting to hit on one of these 12.5x parlays and to really bring home the cash. I'm expecting that to happen sooner rather than later, and really excited to hop into round 2 here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right into the prize picks targets here for the second round on Friday. All right, first off, we're going to go ahead and review Thursday's round to get an idea of what to expect here on Friday. And in general, the scoring average was a little bit better than usual. You can see it played under par. In fact, 0.16 shots under par, which is about 0.65 shots better than the average here. Usually we see a scoring average over par, a cut line in the +1 to +3 range, and if everything were to stand right now, if we were to just replicate round 1 over round 2, we'd be seeing an even par or a -1 cut, which we've never seen at this event, at least while it's been at this specific golf course, but that is all going to change tomorrow. If we go ahead and split this by wave, you'll see that the morning wave was much easier than the afternoon, about a 0.6 shot difference between the morning and the afternoon waves, most notably on the front 9, where it was nearly a 0.6 shot difference itself. On the back 9, it is only about a tenth of a stroke difference between the 2 halves, and in general, a lot of that came down to wind. Towards the afternoon, it went from right around a 4 to 5 mile an hour sustained wind, upwards of 7 to 8 miles an hour, which doesn't sound like all that much, but even that 4 to 5 mile an hour difference made a huge difference in the scoring. And what is going to be a huge factor for tomorrow is the weather forecast. This is the Wind Finder forecast for San Antonio Airport, which is about 30 minutes away from the golf course, so not the most accurate wind report, but of course if there's 20 to 30 mile an hour winds on the other side of town, it's also very likely to be windy on the other side. So you can see towards the morning, it's going to be a little bit calmer than in the afternoon, only 8 to 12 mile an hour winds, but 8 to 12 mile an hour sustained winds are more than what we saw in the afternoon, more than a 0.16 shot over par average, right? So you're going to see a difference in the scoring for tomorrow's waves, but in the afternoon specifically, it gets a whole lot worse. Right around noon, it gets to the 12 to 14 mile an hour range, and then in the afternoon, 14 to 15 mile an hour sustained winds for the entire day, not to mention the fact that there's going to be 20 mile an hour gusts for the entire day. So this scoring average that we saw for day 1, where it ended up actually playing under par, that is not going to happen again. We're easily going to have a half a stroke over par average, if not closer to 1 or even 1.5 strokes over par. Those 14 to 15 mile an hour sustained winds in the afternoon are not going to be a joke. So in general, with the wind, there's going to be a slight advantage to playing in the morning, but it isn't going to be all that significant. I'm expecting it to be right around a 0.4 or a 0.5 shot difference between the morning and the afternoon waves, but not anything that's going to make it drastic. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the prize picks board for tomorrow, where we have quite a few different targets that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and start off with Hideki Matsuyama on the birdies or better market, where I'm taking his under at 4.5 birdies. Now Hideki, typically one of the best players in the world, and a ball striking machine, going to put himself in plenty of opportunities. Usually just comes down to the putter, and just considering that, right, the ball striking and then the deficiencies with the putter, I would already be a little bit skeptical about the 4.5 birdies number. He has to have that putter to cooperate to get to 5-6 birdies where you'd have to hit the over there. The other aspect that makes this one of my favorite plays on the slate, in fact, my favorite prop for round 2, is that he's dealing with an injury. He's been dealing with a back injury for the last 2 or 3 events, ended up having to withdraw from the Players' Championship, did not play at the WGC match play, and this week talked to his media about potentially having to withdraw before Thursday. So we didn't even know if he was going to tee it up obviously ended up doing so today, but ended up shooting 2 over par. Really got off to a sluggish start, was at 1.3 over par, ended up kind of putting it back together there on the back 9, but a 2 over par round for Hideki Matsuyama is not what we're looking for. And tomorrow morning, he'll be teeing off at 9:03 a.m. He could very well feel worse. And anyone out there that's had any type of back issues in their life knows that in the mornings, particularly when it's a little bit more chilly, like it tends to be in the mornings over there in Texas, San Antonio area, you get a little bit more tense, right? That back starts to hurt a little bit more. It's harder to get it loose. And for people that are dealing with issues in that lower back region, it is going to be even more of a problem. So Hideki Matsuyama certainly looked rough today, but that was in the warmer part of the day. Also towards the afternoon, where you had plenty of time to get warmed up, to have physicians work on the area, do everything that they can to get him prepared to play. Whereas tomorrow morning, he'll be going off at the bright early part of dawn. So I don't like his chances to go out there and play all that well tomorrow. In general, for DFS, I'll be fading him as well. But at the 4.5 birdies or better mark, going to be somebody that is my favorite under on the slate. And now, like I said before, even if he didn't have the back issues, I'd be worried about him hitting the over. He still has to have that putter to cooperate to hit the over. So one of my favorite plays on the slate, like I said before. Let's go ahead and move to my next under, which is going to be the under on Jason Day greens in regulation. Now, there's going to be a recurring theme between my first and second pick here because Jason Day is dealing with injury concerns of his own. He's dealing with back issues he has for his entire career, and yesterday played in the morning, and you could really tell that the back was an issue. He was grabbing it from time to time. He was trying to get it stretched out by his caddy, and the swing in general looked really tense. He wasn't getting through the ball like he needed to. He was missing a ton of greens, and that's why he ended up shooting over par today. In fact, ended up shooting 2 over par. Really never had his best stuff, was always in that scrambling type of mindset, and tomorrow he ends up playing in the harder of the 2 waves. So even though he's in the afternoon, we'll have a little bit more time to warm up the back. Still probably not going to be 100% by the time we get to the afternoon, much like what we saw with Hideki Matsuyama today. And even on top of that, now he gets the really hard conditions. So I don't expect him to have the best day. He hit well under 11 greens in regulation for today's round, and I would expect that to be a consistent pattern for the rest of the week, even if he ends up making the cut for that matter. Let's go over to strokes now. We're starting to get to some of our plays. Of course, those first 2 were unders, more fades for the slate. People that I don't expect to play well tomorrow. But now let's talk about the guys that I expect to come through for us. And first and foremost, that's going to be Brent Seneca at 73 strokes, where we are going to be taking the under. So Brent Seneca is going to be playing in the morning. That is advantageous out of the 2 waves. But he's also somebody that's had a lot of success at this golf course. In the past, he has multiple top 10 finishes. And even though he isn't the longest player on tour, when he hits fairways, he's going to get a ton of rollout this week. The fairways at TPC San Antonio are among the most firm and fast on the PGA Tour. So that means that even guys that are hitting it out there 290, 300 yards through the air like a Brent Seneca are going to get the 325 to 330 yard drives, which of course at a relatively short golf course, which 7,400 yards for a par 72 is relatively short for these tour players, is going to be extremely advantageous. So I like the fact that he's playing in the morning. I like the fact that he's had a lot of success at this golf course over the years. And of course, unlike Jason Day and Hideki Matsuyama, he's healthy, right? He's getting up there in age, but he at the very least is having everything rolling on all cylinders. So as long as he goes out there and shoots even par tomorrow, he will hit the under for us. Of course, 73 is implying that he's shooting 1 over par. If he ends up shooting 1 over par and pushing for us, that's not the end of the world either. So I really like that prop right there. I would expect it to move at some point. I wouldn't expect it to be at 73 for very long. So if you're watching this video, make sure to hop on the prop as soon as you can so you can hit that 73 number, because I would not be surprised at all if it moves down to 72.5 within the next half an hour to an hour. Next up, let's talk about Ian Poulter, where we're going to be taking the over at 3.5 birdies or better. So we were taking the under on Hideki. We were worried about the putter, but for Ian Poulter, he is somebody that we're not worried about the putter at all. In fact, he's one of the best putters in the world on the Poa Anua surface. Now, you might hear conflicting reports about the surface type when it comes to the greens at TPC San Antonio, but from the GSCA themselves, which is the Greenskeeper Association, which is literally given out by the PGA Tour, they've told us that the greens at TPC San Antonio this year are a Poa Trivialis overseed. That means that all of this Bermuda information that you might be hearing from other sources are just wrong, right? If I trust the PGA Tour directly, not necessarily some of these other secondary sources. And Ian Poulter today, even though he didn't have his best stuff with the ball striking, he definitely had it with the putter. And he'll be teeing off in the morning. He'll be teeing off at 8:41 a.m., the best of the two waves, one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. And all he has to do is make us 4 birdies to hit the over. Now, I know he didn't do it today. He didn't have his best stuff, but at the same time, was still able to get it in under par. He's had some success at this golf course. Much like Brent Seneca, also going to get plenty of rollout with some of those drives if he's able to keep it in the short stuff. And in general, any of these guys at 3.5 birdies, I'd be willing to take a shot on with the over. It's going to be difficult tomorrow, but for the guys that are playing in the morning, it's going to at the very least be possible, right? They're going to have soft enough greens. And for guys like Ian Poulter that are from England, that are used to very windy, blustery conditions, I mean, he grew up in those type of conditions over there, I would not expect them to have much trouble tomorrow. And now lastly, for our last pick is going to be the over on fairways hit for Zach Johnson. And for Zach Johnson to be at 8 fairways hit seems a little bit disrespectful. He's a very accurate driver of the golf ball, not very long off the tee, and as a result tends to get the ball in the short grass a lot more than other players because he has to. If he doesn't, he deals with a lot more penalty out of the rough than other players. So at 8 fairways hit, I definitely think that's reasonable. This is a golf course with all 14 fairways in play, and also teeing off in the morning. So getting the advantageous of the two waves for sure. Zach Johnson, like I said, one of the more accurate drivers on the PGA Tour. And at this point, didn't start off the best there in round 1. Needs to have a solid round 2. So he's going to have to start that off with getting the ball in the fairway. Of course, having some good wedge play into these greens. And dealing with that putting, relying on that flat stick like he usually does. So I also considered taking him for strokes. He's one of those guys that's towards the 72 range. Let's see what they had him at last call, 72.5. I considered taking the under because, much like a Brent Seneca, teeing off in the morning, very good skill set for this golf course. I just think he's being a little bit disrespected there and in the advantageous conditions. So if you're going to take the under on strokes, I could take that as well. But the fairways hit number, actually a little bit better in my book, at least per the numbers that I'm running. So this is the 5-leg card that I'm going to be going with for round 2. That is a 12.5x parlay. Of course, a flex play as all 5-leg cards are for golf. And in general, I'm expecting it to come through for us. That is all I've got for the Prize Picks preview. Before you go on and get out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. Whether it was something that I mentioned or completely off of my radar, I would love to hear from you guys, so make sure to go ahead and comment that below. Look forward for all of our content throughout the weekend as well. We'll have it covered for round 3 and round 4 prize picks. We got showdown content coming up on the channel. And of course, even more golf content to come throughout the weekend. We're going to have Masters content for next week. We covered for all the events this year. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any of that to come. Make sure you smash the like button if you haven't already as well. Good luck with all of your props here for round 2, guys. And let's get this cash.